sounds of Sussex.
Together, we can make a difference. BBC Radio Sussex.
If you should tell me that I'll always be the one you'll always love so true, then I can tell you I could easily fall in love with you. It wasn't long ago I saw you there, but even then I thought I knew that given half a chance I could easily fall in love with you. I've been too long on my own summer now. I've been too long by myself. I couldn't feel more lonesome now if I was left on the shelf. Don't ever change the smile that you're smiling now, and please don't let me see you blue. Then I can tell you oh so easily I could easily fall in love with you. I've been too long on my own some now. I've been too long all by myself. I couldn't feel more lonesome now if I was left on the shelf. Don't ever change that smile that you're smiling now, and please don't let me see you blue. Then I can tell you oh so easily I could easily fall in love with you.
Cliff and the Shadows, I Could Easily Fall in Love with You, which was just one of the songs that was co-written by my guest this morning, who is the drummer of the Shadows. It's Brian Bennett. Hello, Brian.
Good morning, Graham.
Good morning to you. Lovely to have you with us. Now, I was mentioning earlier on that I think that this is the 60th anniversary of you actually joining the Shadows, isn't it? Was it 1961, Brian?
Yes, it was.
Wow, happy 60th. Can you believe that?
No, I can't. I can't at all.
I'll tell you what, just before we get going, why don't I remind people of some of the hits that you were featured in having joined the Shadows. Songs like this. Wonderful memories, yes.
Bit of editing there, Graham, if I may say so.
Say again, what was that?
A nice bit of editing.
Yes, well, we have to thank Simon, my executive producer, for that one.
Well done.
I've just elevated him.
Yeah.
He did that. And another one that's coming up in just a moment. So I'm just going through those. I think I'll get them in the right order. There was Atlantis, Wonderful Land, The Rise and Fall of Flingle Bunch. You wrote that, didn't you? I
Yes.
think. Yeah. Dance On and Foot Tapper right at the end. And you were drumming there, of course.
Yeah.
And who was Flingle Bunt?
Well, he was just a fictitious character that Richard O'Sullivan invented on one of the film things. Wonderful Life, I think it was.
Yeah.
We were just making up stories, and he was talking about this guy called Flingle Bunt, who didn't exist, so we just used it as a title. We always had strange titles.
How many times have you been asked that question? Who's Flingle Bunt?
Flingle Bunt, yeah, many.
I
many
bet.
times.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's start at the most notorious, I think you could say, coffee bar in London for all the right reasons as well. The Two Eyes in Soho. Now, I think you were the resident drummer there, weren't you, Brian?
I was the resident drummer there, 57 to 58, and halfway up to 59 when I joined Marty Wilde's band for a couple of years. So it was really a wonderful place in Soho, and it was the birthplace of British rock and roll, really.
Well, it really was, and there's a plaque outside to prove it. I think you were there at the unveiling of it, weren't you?
I was, yes.
And yeah, you mentioned Marty Wilde. He was a guest of mine a couple of months ago, towards the end of last year. Great guy. We talked about golf. I know you're a keen golfer, aren't you? Do you play golf with Marty?
And I haven't played for a couple of years, but I'm a keen golfer, and I played with Marty a few times. And indeed, I played on Marty's last single that he just put out, that you probably played.
I did. Yes, It was the one about the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That he did with Kim, his daughter.
Right, yeah.
That's right.
And Roxanne was on it, I think, as well, yeah.
That's right, his daughter, certainly on the album. And you also played with Tommy Steele, didn't you, in those days?
I did to start with, yes. I did a season with Tommy Steele, and we did a lot of Sunday concerts flying around in this little sort of four-seater Dove, Mickey Mouse Airways. The early days of touring, of course, were not as sort of streamlined as they are today, with hotels where you can get food at midnight. And in the early days, touring wasn't easy. It was like rattling cold coaches and bed and breakfast type places.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. You earned your money in those days, didn't you? No luxury coaches with air conditioning.
Yeah.
Just getting back to the Two Eyes in Soho. I mean, how did you actually get that job as the resident drummer, Brian?
I think it was downstairs was managed by a man called Tom Littlewood, yeah. And I went down there a few times and just sat in. And he said, if you want to stay, be the house drummer. So Licorice was the bass player. So Brian Locking, myself, and a guy called Tony Sheridan, the guitarist, was the house band down there.
All right,
and we stayed there for a couple of years. Great place to learn pay your dues and learn your craft, and good times.
Oh yes, and I suppose in a way it was our small version of the Cavern, wasn't it?
Well, it was, yes. It was indeed, exactly that, yeah.
Yeah, well then, it was a great move because it led to everything that you've done. Where did you actually learn the art of drumming, Brian? How did that happen?
It happened when I was about, I suppose about 3 or 4, really. Used to listen to the Glenn Miller band when they were stationed over here during the war. And they did live broadcasts from Aeolian Hall in Bond Street. And my mum used to put pots and pans out, and I used to get these little wire washing up brushes and just tap around. And a couple of people sort of said it sounded quite good. It was quite sort of rhythmic, So I've always loved playing, and I've always loved being a rhythmist. And then I joined the school dance band. And then, of course, rock and roll came along, and not a lot of people at the time could actually do it properly. There's a groove that Bill Haley got, which was a real tight shuffle, and I managed to get that. And then I got job after job after job, and sort of got sort of well known. Yeah.
You certainly did. And Cliff Richard, right? We'll move on to Cliff now because the original Shadows drummer for Cliff was Tony Meehan.
Tony Meehan, yeah, great drummer.
Yeah, and so they went off. Well, I say they, Tony Meehan and another founding member of the Shadows, Jet Harris, the guitarist.
Yes.
They left the Shadows and had big hits as well. I think I'm right in remembering that they actually knocked Cliff and you off the top of the hit parade with their song Diamonds, didn't they?
I believe they did, yes.
It's a lovely irony there. Why did they leave? Why did they leave the Shadows, Brian?
Oh, I just think sometimes you're in a band and you just have to sort of move on. It's a bit like any group of people. There's always like you can have disagreements, and when you're that young, you can't. When you're very young and you go into a disagreement or something is uncomfortable, rather than sit quietly and discuss it and sort it out calmly, you leave. And there was some personal differences, which you get with every band, every group of people. So it was quite natural. So they left separately. I worked with the band with Jet Harris as the bass player for over a year and a half, 2 years before Licorice turned up. So they went off, and then they had hits. Marvellous. Yeah,
and so Cliff installed you into the position.
He did.
Because you obviously knew you from the Two Eyes.
Well, he knew me from the Two Eyes, and then of course he knew me from Marty's band. Mm-hmm. So it was there was one choice. I'm lucky enough to say it wasn't sort of like, I wasn't going for the job. I actually had a job, and in fact I had a job. In fact, Bruce Welch. It was Bruce Welch that called Margaret, my wife, and I was going into the pit of Stop the World, I Want to Get Off with Tony Newley in the West End, and it was 25 quid a week, and I was very happy. I was at home. I started a family, and Bruce Welch phoned Margaret up and said, "Can I speak to Brian Bennett? We've got the Shadows." And she said, "No, he's busy. He's in town. He's in the West End. He's doing his session work, and he's getting 25 quid a week." So he said, "Double it." So we looked at each other, and I said, "Okay, well, there's the house, and we've suddenly, you're up to 50 quid a week, Gray. I mean, 1961 was a fortune,
a sizable amount.
So that was it. I was on the next train up.
Excellent. Now I'm going to play another little montage. Now these for Cliff and the Shadows, these songs were written or co-written by you. So let's remember some of the songs that you wrote for Cliff.
Thank you.
You're gonna find me out in the country. Yeah, you're gonna find me way out in the country. We're all going on a summer holiday. No more working for a week or two. Fun and laughter on our summer holiday. No more worries for me or you for a week or two. Don't forget to catch me when I fall in love with you. And don't forget to patch my heart if it should break in two. Wonderful life, it's a wonderful life.
Cliff and the Shadows, and songs co-written or written by my guest today, the Shadows drummer, Brian Bennett, OBE. Wow, wonderful memories. So we heard In the Country, Summer Holiday, Don't Forget to Catch Me, finishing off with Wonderful Life. And yeah, lovely, aren't they? And you wrote Summer Holiday with Bruce Welch, didn't you? And I think it got you your first Ivor Novello Award.
It did indeed, yes. We were in pantomime in Stockton on Tees. And we were in one of those terrible bread and breakfast places, and Bruce came in. I was doing a postal course from the Berklee School of Music in America, because I wanted to be an arranger and a film writer. I was looking at my future. So he said, got a script here about some guys going down with a bus. And I sort of cockily said, "I'm a bit busy, Bruce. I'm doing a postal course from Berklee School of Music." So he started strumming this thing, and we finished Summer Holiday in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I didn't think of anything of it. It was a very simple, catchy tune. But many, many years later, if I can just tell a little silly story, we had a place in Portugal, and I used to go down and play bit of golf, and I was at Luton Airport. All these school children were sitting around singing Summer Holiday. They were sort of like, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, either with a school or with parents and teachers, and they'd made a circle. And I went and stood in the circle. I went, oh, great, And a teacher looked at me, and I said, I wrote that. And he said, go away.
Well, the song will never go away. And I guess they were on their way to a summer holiday, weren't they, the kids at the time, at the airport? That's lovely.
Yes,
Just imagine.
Yeah.
In fact, you had a bit of a bad time with a drumstick, didn't you? Because it caused you quite an injury, and it didn't heal. Tell us about that. How could a drumstick cause you an injury? What happened, Brian?
Well, I'll tell you what it was. They were really old pair of sticks. They were really a bit gnarled. And, I don't like new sticks. I like a stick that's gnarled. But there's gnarled and gnarled. And if it starts to get a little, where you hit a rim shot particularly loud, or the side of a cymbal, you get a little splinter, which sticks of the stick. And in which case, if it gets in the way, you just chuck it away and start again. And we were in Reykjavik in Iceland, and a splinter got stuck in my nail, right down in my nail. It was very painful. So I found a pair of old pliers in the workroom of back of one of these theatres, and of course they were dirty pliers, and I infected my finger, and I ended up going to the local doctor. He said, "This is bad. You've got to get it seen to." So the next stop on the tour was Paris, and I went to the hospital in Paris. They said, "We're going to have to amputate this." I said, "What?" They said, "We're going to have to amputate." So I ran out of there, I bounded up, and went to a different place. And I played the next couple of concerts with a splint and almost one-handed.
Wow. It's the old showbiz adage, isn't it, Brian? The show must go on. My goodness, it was going to.
Susie Quattro went on with a broken arm, and she was sitting there. I said, I don't think I could do this. She said, just get on and do it.
Another former guest of mine, Susie Quattro.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. I must ask, because you come up with some lovely tweets, on Twitter, and you come up with some... You don't just tweet about nothing. The other day, I saw this wonderful photograph of Ella Fitzgerald, and you said, this is something here for you for the weekend, and... tell us about that story, because you did a session with her, didn't you? And then Sinatra came in. Tell us all about it. This is good.
Sinatra formed a record company.
Reprise.
He got a lot of people. He wanted a sort of new style of musical people and jazz people, and it was called Reprise Records. Yeah. And I was booked to do a session at Olympic Studios. And when you're booked to do session work, you never know who's going to be there. And the greatest thing is when you turn up and when your heroes are there. So I set the kit up. Rupert Perry was the producer. He came in. He said, "Hey Brian, I want you to hit the center of the snare drum. No rim shots." And he was very particular about the sound that he wanted. Mm. So and then walked Ella. I went, Christ, yeah, there she is. It's Ella. So we did some tracks with it for an Ella album. And it was called Get Ready. Yeah,
and I've got a clip of that, Brian. So let's have a little bit. And I was very pleasantly surprised. I thought, ooh, Motown, Ella, but you know something, it works. Let's have a little clip of that, just 30 seconds.
I never met a guy who makes me feel the way that you do. You're all right. Whenever I'm asked who makes my dreams real, I say that you do. You're out of sight.
And then the whole thing is like that, and it's a great production. And there you are, hitting the sticks there with Ella Fitzgerald. Fabulous.
Yeah. I'll tell you one little sort of a side story with that. That particular tune went into Cliff Richard's office with Ella singing, and they were putting together a tour for Cliff. And at one stage, I was Cliff's musical director, and put a band together, and we went to Japan, and we actually went to Russia for a time. But that was the opening tune, and they said, "We've got this tune from America, Get Ready, Ella Fitzgerald." I said, "Oh, yeah, I know that." And they said, no, well, you wouldn't know it because it hasn't been released yet. It's an American record. It's Richard Perry, and it's American production. I said, yeah, I was on it. And they looked at me and they said, no, you weren't on it. Don't be stupid. It's Ella Fitzgerald, So I just went, okay, fine. It's prophet in his own land is never recognised.
And you no, exactly. You mentioned because that was 1969, wasn't it?
Remember.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was 1969. And there was. Did Sinatra walk in? Tell us that story.
No. I've never met Sinatra.
Oh, I thought you had.
No.
I thought he had something to do. He'd come into a session that you were doing with Ella Fitzgerald because she just signed. Oh, obviously I got that wrong.
No,
right, we'll move on.
He signed to his label. He formed Reprise Records.
Yes, exactly. But yeah. I thought I read somewhere that he actually came into one of the sessions you were on, but obviously it wasn't you. No.
Not me.
But you were drumming away on that one in 69 with Ella Fitzgerald. They can't take that away from you. Great version too. Then, it all went a bit quiet. And in the mid-70s, you were asked to do Eurovision. Tell us about that. But not playing, yes, but also singing.
But yes. 1975, they asked us to do Eurovision. Now, we hadn't toured for years. We hadn't met. We hadn't socialised for years. So we thought, okay, well, do you fancy it? Yeah. Well, before we go there, we should really do half a dozen concerts just to sort of oil ourselves up on stage and remember what it was like. So we did a few concerts, and the opening concert was at Fairfield Hall, Croydon. And we were a bit nervous because we hadn't played for ages. And we walked on, and the audience stood up and applauded for about 5 minutes before we could play a note of music. And there was that there was a wonderful feeling of affection that the audience had for you. They liked us, and it was a great moment. And we were all sort of affected by it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And so I think it was in Austria, wasn't it, Eurovision that year? Is that where you did it?
Sweden, I think.
Sweden, it was Sweden, something like that. So let me take you back to that night in 1975. Here's a little clip from that time.
Bruce, Hank, Brian and John, the Shadows. But on the face of things, Britain hasn't fared too well in the past. Only once have we been outright winners, but strangely enough, we've been runners-up so many times that I reckon we've probably got the best track record of all the countries.
Everybody knows we've been good friends, but I think the time is right. So let me be the one who's loving you tonight. Let me be the one who's loving you tonight. Tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to announce that the winner of the 1975 Eurovision Song Contest is Netherlands.
Sorry about that, Brian. That's kind of rubbing salt into the wound, isn't it?
Because not at all. Ding a dong, lovely song, Ding a dong.
It was great,
wonderful
wasn't
lyric.
it? I did love it. Yes, teaching. That's right. Well, there you go. Didn't worry about the lyrics in those
Bill
days.
Cotton from the BBC he said, come second. He said, come second and be robbed, because he didn't want to finance the next year's Eurovision.
And it was second, wasn't it? Yours? Let me be the one.
Yeah, second. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well,
and Bruce forgot the words, so you knew it was live. First chorus, he fluffed the words. So.
Oh no. Well, it didn't make much of a difference. Probably wouldn't have made any difference in the end anyway. It was fun.
In fact, it was great. It was quite fun because they were all singers, singer-songwriters. It was about the song. Recent things I've seen on it, it's been a bit of a fiasco, really. And I remember I had a pink drum kit made by a company, and it was beautiful. It was pink, and it was all sort of like Beardsley designs, and we got it there, and I was banned from using it for Eurovision because it might affect the votes. They thought they might get something out of it, which we thought was stupid. Nowadays, you get sort of like, dancing bears and sort of like fire eaters and all sorts of things going
Yes,
on.
it's all very different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, you just in case people have tuned in, I'm talking to Brian Bennett, OBE, drummer with the Shadows, of course, and so much more as well, because you've written. You've had three. I think it's 3 Ivor Novello Awards because you did music for.
The Ruth Rendell Mysteries.
Ruth Rendell Mysteries, you got it for that, didn't you? And lots
Yeah.
of other TV shows as well. But in 2004, you got the OBE. Tell us about that day. I think it was the Queen who gave that to you.
It was the Queen. We met Her Majesty. It was a wonderful honour, and Bruce and I turned up at the palace, and they said, "Would you go on together?" And we said, "Yeah, sure." So there's a great picture of the two of us going up, and there's another picture of the Queen smiling, and you know, it was a lovely meeting. It was
I've seen that one. Did she know much about your music? What did she say to you?
No,
Can you remember?
no, not really. We were so I can't even remember what she actually said, but she said, "Are you still talking?"
Talking.
Yes. Whether or not she sort of, because Hank didn't go, you know.
Oh.
I don't know where he was. He might have been in Australia, but he chose not to turn up.
Well, talking of that, you know, the 50th anniversary tour with Cliff and the Shadows, you know, that went down the storm, and it was great to see you guys back together again, of course. And any future reunions? Anything planned? Is it possible that might happen again?
There's nothing planned, but I'd like to think so. I had dinner with Cliff and Bruce, and we thought, you know, if there's something that might be like, you know, for a charity or something like that, that would be a good reason to do it. But there's nothing planned, and of course Hank lives in Perth, so geographically it's always difficult to sort of pop round and chat him up. And and I'm busy doing my film stuff. Hank's got a little gypsy jazz band, which is absolutely brilliant that he does. And
well, you never know. Never say never. And you're currently working on a musical. Was it based in Soho, or is it based in Soho in the 50s?
It is indeed. It's called Soho, and it's based on Soho in the 50s, and it's all about the building of a school that was bombed during the war. And it's all about Soho and the sort of the mobs and the gangsters that used to hang around there.
So not about the two eyes.
Well, it is. We used to have our daughters and girlfriends, and you know, gangsters like rock and roll music as far from anybody else. So they used to get some really shady characters down the two eyes sometimes.
I bet. Well, it's great to see you're continuing working. And is that close to completion? Has it been finished? And when can we see it?
It's been going on and off for about 2 years now. We keep going into ideas. Is it a film? The latest thing is it could be an animated film. So we're talking to a few companies about that at the moment.
Right, to be continued.
To be continued.
I'm going to just to finish off here, Brian, by remembering back. We were talking about golf earlier on, and years ago we were talking about golf again, say, we must get together, and we never have actually, Brian, and we don't live far away from each other. We must do that, you know, when we can again in the future. It'd be lovely to play a round of golf with you.
Yeah.
But I remember saying to you, do you know, I love that theme, the BBC TV golf theme, and you said to me, I wrote it.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that summer holiday story.
Yeah.
I wrote it. I thought, great.
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to do is just play a little bit of that. And thank you really so much for being my guest today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Brian.
Lovely to hear from you as well, Graham. Yeah, marvellous.
And your son, you know, Warren, he's been playing with the Shadows, hasn't he? And I haven't seen him for a few years, so wish him well.
Yeah.
Wish him well, won't you? Please do. And Bruce too. Yeah. Okay, so this is the golf theme that people will remember so well. It just brings back memories of Peter Alice. Brian, all the best to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Graham. Take care.
It really is one of those iconic sporting themes, isn't it? And written by the man you just heard, Brian Bennett, OBE, drummer with The Shadows. And that's it. So I'll tell you what, we'll get some travel news and some weather in just a second. And then should we dance the night away with the Mavericks? And coming in the not too distant future, the Saturday Sound.
Sunday